Scope creep is a project management term, and it essentially means changing the scope or the work of a project after it has begun. Now, it's really easy to identify scope creep with these big changes or big requirement changes. But a lot of times, scope creep comes from these little small innocuous changes that come along that are too easy to do, right? So let me explain to you from a software perspective what's happening at the beginning of a project. A project begins and decisions are being made, APIs that are going to be used, libraries that are going to be used, the architecture that's going to be used, best practices that are going to be followed. All these decisions are made at the beginning of a project when you understand the scope and you understand what the requirements are. So as the project goes and is being executed and there's new requirements and new scope, what's going to happen is these changes are going to we're going to try to fit these changes into these initial decisions that we've made. And sometimes it works, right? And it's okay. But more than often, what happens is we end up patching things on top of other things to get things to work. So what happens there is features take longer to develop. Bugs probably end up popping up more often than not. And this could be a real pain to just like delivering your project. And let me let you in on a big secret here. It's easier and it's cheaper to develop a software project the first time than it is to maintain or fix it. So you want to avoid scope creep as much as you can. Now, if you have a project manager or a product person or a business analyst, that would definitely help to mitigate scope creep. But here's two things that you should think about when trying to mitigate scope creep. First, scope is going to be dictated by your target market or by your stakeholders. So make sure you're building the things that they want and they need, really the things that they need. Validate, validate, validate as much as possible. Secondly, work closely with your software provider. Even after your project is started, make sure you're taking your business problems and solutions and bringing them to the technical provider, because what happens is a lot of the technical solutions to these business problems look very similar, and they may be able to ask you questions that you haven't thought about to be able to guide the development of that software project. So don't be afraid to change your mind on what you're developing or what you want to get done, but be aware scope creep can be a problem.